Howdy, friends. It's Steve DePoe with the Rose Realty team with this week's Real Estate Live for North Texas. Today, the benefits of buying a home. Now, those of us that are homeowners, we know the benefits already, but let's kind of go through them and kind of review them maybe a little bit. So, we're talking about long-term financial growth and net worth, okay? So if you bought a house, let's say 30 years ago for like $105,900, right? 30 years later, that house would have appreciated $280,000, so more than double, right? To around $285,000, okay? That's all. Now, we're saying 30 years, so chances are the mortgage is paid off. So you have almost $400,000 in your pocket in equity. So what are you going to do with that money? Well, there's a lot of things you can do with it. You can buy a second home. You can move and buy a larger place. You can downsize and buy a smaller place. But you can take, all of that equity and put it down on the new home, and potentially have a smaller mortgage or a smaller mortgage payment. Just spoke to a woman like a month ago, okay, and she's all worried about the interest payments. And we started going over her situation, and it turns out that her and her husband are going to have something like $500,000 in equity when all is said and done once they sell their house. Okay. Now, the houses that I'm showing them are like the 450s, 475s. So there's a big possibility that one or two things could happen. Either they pay for the new house in cash, okay, from the equity that they had in their existing home, or what they do is they put a large chunk down, and then therefore their new mortgage payment will be lower than the current mortgage payment, okay, and they pocket the rest of that money. And then once the interest rates come down to like the 4s or 5s again, then you refinance and you have even a lower monthly payment. Then you're sitting on on cloud nine. And then you take maybe the remainder of that money and invest it, or buy a vacation property or something like that. Building equity. So I kind of just talked about that, right? So the average homeowner's net worth, okay, the typical homeowner's net worth in terms of equity is something like $300,000. Okay, somebody compared to somebody who just rents, their typical equity or net worth is around $8,000. So like a $292,000 difference. Okay, big doings, right? That could pay off student loan if you thought about it. That could pay off all kinds of different things and get yourself out of debt if you needed to. Okay, so just again, food for thought. Property costs. So when you own a property, you get to write off your taxes up to $10,000. You get to write off your homeowner's insurance, your homeowner's warranty. You get to write off HOA fees and dues. Talk to your accountant about these things. I'm an accountant, nor do I play one on TV. And then so you get to write off these home expenses. Again, when you then sell that house, the improvements that you've made on the house, you get to add to your base, so that you would owe so that the additional maybe taxes that you may have to pay when you sell that house would be would be lower. And then finally, if you have a fixed mortgage, okay, on your house, then that means that your mortgage payments are going to be consistent and predictable over the life of the mortgage, right? So if you have let's say you have a 30-year mortgage, a fixed 30-year mortgage, you know that your payment every month is going to be X, and that's it. Now, that payment may go up based upon your taxes, but that's it. And so you know that you're going to be consistent every month with your mortgage payment. When you lease a house or apartment, you're basically at the whim of your landlord. Okay, so if your landlord's expenses go up, he's going to raise your rent, and it may be before the lease comes up. But you know that you're going to have, number one, when you make that mortgage payment every month, you're going to pay off a bit of your equity that kind of goes right in your pocket. So you're paying off yourself. When you pay your rent, you're actually paying somebody else's mortgage. You're paying off somebody else, and it's just not a good scene, man. And so the best thing to do for all of us is to buy, is to buy real estate and buy a home. That's what it comes down to, because the financial benefits are so much greater, and your net worth will increase. I hope that kind of maybe gave you a couple of pointers and some things to kind of chew on. Next week, we're going to talk about the preventing buyer's remorse. There's actually because of the last couple of years with the craziness of the market, there's been a fair amount of buyer's remorse. Typically in the when millennials buy, because sometimes it's been their first house over the last couple of years, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's just confined to them. So preventing buyer's remorse is what we're going to talk about next week. This is Steve DePoe. I am with the Rose Realty team. I'm going to go